Okay, good evening. Welcome to Norwalk City School Board regular board meeting, Tuesday, March 8th, 7 o'clock p.m. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Crawford.
Here.
Mr. Moore. Mr. Norris. Here. Mr. Ritzenthaler.
Here.
And Mrs. Wick.
Here. We can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a motion for adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Norris.
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Ritzenthaler.
Yes.
And Mrs. Wick.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna move that. Okay, public participation. Each person who wishes to address the board will be asked to give his or her name and address. Remarks should be limited to 3 minutes in length, and after everyone who wishes to do so has had an opportunity to speak, additional comments can be made up to a total allotted time of 30 minutes. I'll have to have this added. I'm just stating some more facts under the public participation that's in our policy that's not on the agenda. Interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant statement when the statement is too lengthy, personal, directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or redundant. Request any individual to leave the meeting when that person does not observe reasonable decorum. Waive these rules with the approval of the board when necessary to protect privacy and the efficient administration of the board's business. But we won't have any problems, right? Okay, any public participation? Quiet night. Okay, educational spotlight.
Yeah. Mr. King, you spoke briefly on the SEL 2 days, but now we have the big hitter here with Mrs. Sander and to explain what was prepared for kids on those 2 days.
So yeah, I'm Pat Caney, I'm the high school principal, and we started an initiative this year on social emotional wellness. Had a couple good days that we planned and to try to address the concerns that we've seen. So like we started this year with in our face noticing, students and staff are struggling. We've seen, I would look down at the counselors at the end of the day and they'd notice, man, there is a lot of that A word, anxiety all over the place. Like our students are dealing with a lot, like all this stuff going on. I noticed like forever as an assistant principal, when I was working with students with social issues, or like they come in on Monday, like with, saying this stuff on their Snapbook or Snapchat, whatever we call those things. Like they call me a name and say they threaten me on there. And one of the activities I always did with them is going through like their screen time on these apps. And, it's been alarming, the uptick in time on those devices. Sometimes, you can see your last 10 days and you notice like some kids spending 60 to 80 hours on Snapchat, over a 10-day period. It's just 6 to 8 hours a day. And they're worried about something that happens 1% of the time because conflict arises if you're spending that much time on there. But we're noticing we're seeing a lot of this in our face. So we had to come together as a building, how are we going to address this? And this is not only students, this is staff. Through this process, we wanted to address our staff concerns and things like that, work on our own social emotional well-being. Independently, each year we try to come up with what are building goals and district goals. And the thing that was fascinating to me is these are independent of each other. As a building with our teachers, our building leadership teams, and all those groups we identified as our number one student need was addressing, and I know that's bottom one, work to educate on how to deal with high levels of anxiety, develop ways to increase student social emotional wellness. Independently of that, the district also met. That's, I'm one seat on that entire committee, and that kind of runs its own way where they came up with almost the same goal. Faculty and staff in Norwalk City School District will implement strategies, activities, and or lessons that foster social emotional well-being among our students, because we've seen this in our face. Like, what are we going to do about it? And that's the question. What are we going to do about it? None of us went to school on how to address the complex social issues that our students see. We didn't go to school with, Snapbook and all those different things, and how to really address our relationships when we go home from that. Yeah, I know I call it the wrong thing, but and how do we do that? How do we educate? How do we try to come together? And that is a problem. Like, how do we do this? And it kind of like leads off to the key person speaking tonight, Mrs. Sander. And we kind of like tell our story from kind of a little seed that was planted at the counselor conference she attended this fall. I want to say she did a majority of this and is a primary driver behind this initiative that we did. And she's going to tell her part of the story.
Thank you. So it was a big team effort. It was not, I don't want to put the spotlight on myself. I think it really was a big team effort with all of the staff in the office, especially working towards this when I came back with kind of the story of what I heard at All Ohio Counselors Conference. And that was a story of Napoleon's process that they went through to run a similar program. So they created a 2-day wellness program for their students where they did a lot of some activities similar to ours, some a little bit different than ours, but they had a 2-day program where they had kind of addressed some of the needs of their students related to mental health and wellness, and they shared their ideas and what they did, and we kind of just ran with that. We took their ideas, we built off of, we kind of changed it into things that we liked and would fit within our building and within our setting, and so that was kind of how we came up with the idea. How does this look at Nora? What are our biggest issues? As he said, anxiety is what we are seeing so much of, and it's coming from all aspects within our students. It doesn't matter if they are academically high-achieving students, low-achieving students, poor economy, well-off families. It did not matter. It is coming from everywhere, and it's coming from our staff. We're seeing anxiety just more and more frequently, and so that was a big thing that we really wanted to kind of address, make sure that kids have information about it, and then give them some coping skills to try and deal with it. And as he also said, we see a lot coming from cell phone usage and the amount of time that students are spending on social media. So those were kind of some of the issues that we looked at. We kind of came up with 3 goals that we wanted to focus on, making sure that we met: awareness, education, and building relationships. One of the best things that Napoleon said about their experience was how much it helped them build relationships with their students, and just an opportunity to still teach, but to get away from being the teacher in the front of the room, and just an opportunity to kind of sit down and participate in activities with the students and get to know them on a more personal level. So we really wanted to build that in, awareness about the issue, and kind of letting kids know that we see them. We see what they're going through. We can't solve it all, but we're here and we support them. And we just wanted to kind of raise awareness for all students, and then educating them on ways that we can help them and skills that we can give them to try and work through some of these issues that they're dealing with. So we kicked off our 2-day event with the Watching of the Childhood 2.0 video. If you have not watched this, I highly recommend it. We realized that this video is almost more geared toward the parents. It's kind of a documentary where they interview parents and they interview students. The students who watched this, it was of no surprise to them. They know how much they're on social media. They know the dangers of it. They're very well aware of what they're going through. But I think for parents to see it from a different perspective and to see how the generation that I grew up in versus the generation the students now are growing up in is so different, and the different perspectives when talking about certain issues, I think was really eye-opening. So we wanted the students to see this, but we also were hoping that it would open up some conversations between them and their parents. So Mr. Kane made sure it was shared with all of our parents in our district, so they would have an opportunity to watch it and hopefully have some quality discussions with their children about it as well. And a lot of kids really did like this and really thought that it was a valuable experience to watch this video. And just, again, the conversations that they had afterwards with their teachers, I think were very beneficial for both staff and for students. Then we had a variety of activity sessions over 2 days. So we had 2 full days where the students went through different sessions. They had some that were full group sessions where we had the whole building involved, and then we had some where they were smaller group. They were kind of grouped together with their first period class, their first period teacher, and they stayed with that teacher throughout the entire 2 days. They did a lot of self-care activities or coping skill activities, things like getting to have art therapy, doing coloring and Play-Doh. They played board games with their teachers. One of the activities that a lot of people liked was a gratefulness activity where they got to write a thank you note to an adult that's been a support in their life. They did a body scan, which is kind of like a meditation, as well as creating some coping cards, which were just kind of like cards that students could write things on that were meaningful to them, whether it was a song quote, whether it was, something that inspires them, lists of people that they can call when they're feeling anxiety, just different things that are helpful to them that they can kind of always carry with them. So they created those. They got an opportunity to create masks where the goal was to decorate the outside of the mask with the face that you show the world, and then on the inside to put some of the things that you don't show the world, some of the feelings that we all hide or that maybe we're not as comfortable displaying to the whole world. So the students got to work through that. Then we had some help in from Family Life Counseling. Their school-based team came in and they did an amazing job. They had 2 different sessions that the students got to go through. One was focused on anxiety and kind of understanding that and educating them on that. The other was kind of a general mental health wellness group that they did, but they worked with the kids. They had hands-on activities. The kids were up and moving. They were really involved, and they did a great job. They donated their time to us to do that. So really grateful to them for providing that opportunity for us. One of the cool things down at the bottom, very simple thing that the kids loved, cell phone free time in the gym. We challenged them to 30 minutes and they got to play. They had recess. And there were some kids that were like, I haven't played in so long. This is so fun. I had 2 girls who were talking to each other sitting on the side, and I went and talked to them. And the one girl said, I haven't just sat down and talked to my friend in a long time. I was like, how cool is that? Like really simple things that maybe sometimes when they are connected to their cell phone all the time, they kind of forget to enjoy those moments. So just seeing the kids getting to play was really, I thought, really cool. Mrs. Morgan ran a yoga session in one of the gyms, so that was an opportunity for kids to try something new. Mr. Kenya got in on the yoga session, so I think there might be some photos somewhere.
No video, please.
If you want to bribe some students, you might be able to find photos. Then we had some big group activities. Our keynote speakers were Eric Gonzalez and Joe Binkley, and the message that I got from their presentation was it's not what happens to you in life, it's what you do with what happens to you. And they told their stories about how they did not grow up with the easiest life either, and how they really struggled, and how they had to kind of overcome and make changes for themselves because their circumstances were not going to allow them to be successful if they didn't make change themselves. So I thought that was a really powerful message they shared with our students. We had the standing in someone else's shoes activity, where the students were given kind of a random questionnaire of different things, such as I have struggled with homelessness. I have been bullied in school. They had different things that they could check mark if they identified with. And then these questionnaires were collected and they were randomly distributed back to kids when we went into the gym in the afternoon. And so they were looking at a paper in front of them that didn't belong to them. It had somebody else's answers on it. And so we had them stand in response to the answers that were on their paper. And it was really powerful and overwhelming to see how many other students struggle with maybe things that they're struggling with. And also I think just for us as a staff to see how many students are struggling with really big issues or have faced really challenging things in their lives already. So I thought that was a pretty cool experience. And then the last one that we did was what I wish my teachers knew. The students had an opportunity to answer a question about what I wish my teachers knew anonymously. And so students really opened up and they shared some things that they've been through, some struggles that they faced. And then we also had our teachers do the same thing. So they shared what I wish my students knew. And they had an opportunity to kind of open up anonymously and talk about things that they've overcome and that we've also been through similar things that maybe the students have. And yet we've been able to work through that and to, still go on to be successful adults. So it was a great way to kind of show that we've been in their shoes. We know what it's like. And yet we're here for them. We can help them. Like I said, we can't fix everything they're going through, but we can be here and kind of go on that journey with them and support them as they face all those challenges. So it was a really great 2 days. There was a lot of positive things that happened. Here's a couple of clips. I don't think that Mr. King is in that yoga picture.
No, I took that one.
You took that picture. Okay. The top left was some of the activities they did with the Family Life Counseling counselors. The right is the yoga, and then underneath on the bottom left, you can see the one group of students created an entire, I think that was
Baseball.
Wrigley Field. Was it Wrigley Field they did? I think they created an entire baseball stadium out of Play-Doh together as a group. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing. And then some of the girls who created their masks in that activity. So some things we learned, we did do some surveys with the students, pre and post survey, as well as some information from our staff. One of the questions that I thought was impactful was for students to rate their anxiety level. So we kind of asked them on a scale of 1 to 5, and this was before our 2-day session. We asked them whether they feel very little anxiety all the way up to I have anxiety pretty much every day and I don't know how to handle it. And these were the number of students that responded to each area. So we had 43 students that said they feel anxious every single day. On the positive end of that, we had 95 students who said they feel very little anxiety, and then kind of everything in between. But to me, what I thought was interesting, if you take the bottom two, I feel anxious every day, and I feel anxious most of the time or almost every day, it was 1/3 of our students who responded to the survey. That's a lot to me, that they're feeling anxiety on almost every single day, 1/3 of our students. So that let us know that we really know that we need to respond to this. We need to show them that we see that it's an issue and that we want to give them some resources to kind of work their way through that. We asked them if they have at least one adult in their life that they can talk to. 88% of our students said that they do have one adult in their life. But it was 58 students who said that they don't feel that they even have one adult that they can trust. So again, we have some work to do there. And we also asked them, what about at the school? I have one adult at Norwalk High School that I can talk to. And 68% of our students said that they do, which is amazing. But we still have a big group of students who don't yet have an adult that they can trust at the high school. We want them to have somebody that, every day when they come here and they're going through something, that they have somebody that they can reach out to. So hopefully through these 2 days, we were able to form some relationships. The one thing we didn't do was ask this question after the 2 days. We should have re-asked this question and we didn't, but I would have been curious to know whether or not any relationships were formed during these 2 days that could have maybe improved these numbers a little bit. So in our post survey, we asked students their feelings about these social emotional wellness days. 98% of students liked it. Most of them thought that we should do it again. Some of them thought we should do it again, but 2 days was a little bit too much for them. And only 2% of our students did not enjoy the experience, did not want to take part in it again. We asked staff the same question. We have 99% who wanted to see it again in some fashion or another. I think one of the biggest things that I don't think we could rebuild this again and do a whole nother 2 days in the same fashion, but we know that we need to continue doing something going forward. Can we do it in shorter increments more frequently? What can that look like? That's something that we want to work on through our BLT and just keep building this and keep kind of using this as our first step in continuing to work on this in our future. So some of the feedback that we got, there were a lot of staff who were hesitant about this. There were some that were not feeling so sure about it, who weren't really sure that they wanted to do it or that it was a good idea. And those same staff members came up to me afterwards and were like, thank you, that was awesome. That was cool. We needed that. I've never got to sit with my students like that. That was good for them as well. They had positive experiences with it. We had a lot of students, just the little comments. I had students say, I didn't even miss my cell phone today. How cool is that? Like, that was pretty cool. I had a student tell me it was the best 2 days of school that he's ever had in his life. That's pretty impressive too. We had a lot of students come and talk to us. One of the questions we asked is if they wanted to meet with their counselor. We had 24 students that asked for a meeting with their counselor. So there's 24 kids that we got to reach out to individually and talk with them. We've had a lot of students come down to us in the last couple of weeks and share things with us that we hadn't known previously. So whether it was direct correlation to us having these days or not, I don't know, but it seems like we've definitely had an increase in that, and students sharing kind of things, that are a little bit deeper level on things that are really important to them. And I think there was some relationship building with our staff as well, and with students. I think they felt a lot of that, that they feel closer to that group of students now, and they really know them on a lot deeper level. So those were all really positive things that we got from this, and I definitely look forward to continuing, like I said, in some fashion, whatever those next steps may be.
Yeah, like Michelle said, one of our big primary goals was to get the discussion started. We have to start somewhere. And, there's not a lot of, good evidence-based strategies that we know are just absolutely going to work for Norwalk High School. So we went out, tried something over a couple of days. We got interrupted with a big snowstorm in there, and And, our day one was the rain day that Erie County took, but, so we had some things like, and we were worried that would kill some of our momentum, but we came back day two and actually it was really good. Our attendance was really high and, we think it overall went very good. Our next steps, like we want to look to incorporate pieces of this, throughout the year next year. We need to debrief with all of our leadership teams and decide, what worked, what didn't. We know some parts could have been better, just like anything. But we wanted to get the ball rolling on that and, continue to embed this within each classroom moving forward. One of the loaded statistics is what it will do to attendance. We went through Delta and Omicron first semester. So after that, I know we'll have better attendance data as we've seen already. So like those are other things that we'll continue to measure, evaluate, and look to do in the future. So that was our experience for that. And I appreciate your time. Thanks, Dan.
And here's where I applaud Norwalk High School taking risks, because in our positions of leadership and with Michelle, Pat, Sandy's here, BLT of Norwalk High School, it's easy to do nothing and say, we have identified concern, we have identified issue with students, with staff. We are taking risks, and hopefully you're seeing that. And the kids, we have juniors here today, you were part of that. We're taking risk here, and they understand. Some parts were good, some were great, some where we have to tweak and get better for future years. So that's why I applaud, because like I said, it's simple to do nothing. Say, yeah, we have X, Y, Z problems. What are we going to do about it? And we all sit around in a circle in a group and say, here's what we should do, may do. They're attempting, they're trying that. So I applaud them greatly for taking that risk, and hopefully the junior students in here gain something from that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Treasurer's report.
Joyce, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Are you going to show us your face?
Well,
There she is.
Hey.
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, well, thanks, Corey. I appreciate you once again taking the role and doing the secretarial work of the meeting for me. I do hope to be back in person next month. So we'll just go over the items we have. We have the minutes, both the special session meeting with the OFCC and the regular session meeting minutes. Then we have February financial reports. February's a bit of a short month. We didn't have a lot exciting happening in the financial area. We did have one new investment. It's highlighted in yellow on your investment sheet. It's a U.S. Treasury at 1.375, although it was purchased at a discount. So the actual yield to maturity is 1.477. You'll notice on the fund balance sheet, the food service fund, it still has a positive balance. It's now $164,251, so that's a really good trend. We'll also hear soon if next year it's going to be free lunches for students once again. That's a federal decision, so we're waiting to hear that. We do finally have a good idea of our state foundation funding. I will save that till we're in person to do the details, since Corey threatened to mute me if I spoke too long. So we'll save that for next month. I do expect an additional $400,000 in funding from the fiscal 19 levels. Unfortunately, the formula was not fully funded. It was phased in at 1/6%. So we're short $2.7 million from what we should actually be funded for the year. Next, we have our resolution accepting the rates. We received our tax rates and our amounts for fiscal 23. This is in July when we start the next fiscal year. This is the second step in the process. Step one is when you approve the tax budget back in January. Our overall valuation increased from $349 million to $383 million. This has finally placed us at the 20 mil floor. So if you compare this year's rates and amounts to the prior year, you'll see that the final millage rollback has occurred. For general fund levies, the millage has reduced from 37.45 to 36.8 mils. The bond levy went from 3 mils to 2.7 mils, and our permanent improvement is down to 0.980 mils. So the important takeaway, the really good news, is this is a reduction to our taxpayers of almost a mil without decreasing our tax collections. So let's say that again. This is almost a 1 entire mil of reduction to our taxpayers, and it did not decrease our tax collections. So next, we have our approving the interim treasury, United States Treasury with multi-bank securities. We have an appropriation change. This is due to the grant for the school bus from the state for $156,701 and the increased collections in the food service. Then we have our school bus bid. We only had one bidder this time. It was Cardinal Bus. The bid was to our specifications and did meet what we wanted. The base cost for our 84 passenger bus is $112,146. The wheelchair lift bus is $117,225. These bids are much higher than previous years. Last year, I believe our bus bid was $98,000, so you see it was quite an increase. It's been many years since we had a wheelchair bus. 2014 was the last year, so that's not really comparable. And then next we have our donation. We had a $7,000 anonymous donation to our drama department. And finally, the our ESSER funding. This was part of the suggestion that the auditors had, that the board continues to approve the ESSER funding and the different things that we do with it. We're still continuing to do, like you had approved last month with the 7 elementary teachers. And now as our salary and benefits are running out in our federal funds, our Title II or Title I, IDA 516, we're going to continue to pay those staff from the ESSER funding as part of our continuity of services and avoiding layoffs. And that is all I have for you this month. Any questions?
Okay, can we have a motion for approval for treasurer's report items 1 through 8?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Any discussion? Thank you, Joyce. And roll call?
Mr. Norris,
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Ritzenfeller,
Yes.
and Mrs. Wick.
Yes. Okay, personnel.
We have 2 resignations. Connie Cluding served in many different capacities at Norwalk City School District. Most of you know her as the point person at League Elementary with Mr. Kreischer. She's been there for some time. She was sadly putting in a resignation letter in because she loves this district, loves the kids, loves the teachers here. So that is difficult. And I'll say more when we recognize her along with other staff retiring for the year, but top shelf individual if you know her. Taylor Tanzillo started this year with us, special needs aide. She is having to resign for some of her personal issues that she's dealing with. Number 2, administrative contracts. We have 2. We have 1 principal, Maplehurst principal, Ken Moore, for a 3-year contract, and Tim Scheel, part of our transportation, building and grounds department, asking for approval of a 3-year contract from next year all the way from the 2024-25 as the 3rd year of their contract. Employment of home instruction tutor, Kelsey King. We have a number 4, employment of certified and classified substitutes as listed there. On the 5, this is a standard fare. Those students teachers that work outside of their contract with kindergarten screening, those individuals will be helping with that. Number 6, classroom volunteer, Miss Valentine. Number 7, employment of supplemental contracts, Todd Fox. He'll be working primarily in the Reagan as conditioning coach during that season. Number 8, special contracts. These are 2 paid coaches that are not on our roles as employees of Norwalk City. That's Dave Daniels and Beth Lesh, middle school track. And last there, number 9, we have volunteer coaches for baseball, softball, and track with the following 3 individuals. Those are my items for approval.
Okay, we have a motion for approval for superintendent's personnel items 1 through 9. Thank you. Second? Thank you. Any discussion?
All coaches been through their training, right? Correct?
Yes.
OHSA.
Yep.
Roll call?
Mr. Norris,
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Ritzenfeller.
Yes.
And Mrs. Wick.
Yes. Superintendent's reports.
Okay. Item 1, the calendar. We had discussed that last month. There were no additional comments that came from our last month of the concern of the fair day being the staff day on that Friday prior. Some parent concerns with the 2-hour delays that we're looking to have. Talked to all the individuals, brought those concerns to us. The calendar that was displayed last month is staying put for what it is. So what we saw last month, that is still in effect. So that'll be our official calendar for the 22-23 school year for Norwalk. Very promising. I addressed this last month. Norwalk, St. Paul, Martin Linder confirmed they will be following that calendar to a T. So when we look at additional expenses with busing of St. Paul students, Norwalk students, that'll be a non-concern because St. Paul is on the exact schedule as we are. There's some differences on daytime of how he's going to use that time, but nothing impacting the overall operation of the district. Number 2 is third grade assessments. We as a district are making the decision, the choice to go paper in third grade assessment. So paper format, you go paper format, electronic format. That was a decision. We've looked at that and we feel paper format is the best for our kids. So simply you're acknowledging that and approving the paper usage for third grade assessments. Number 3, some of you may have seen the media. We met several weeks ago with Ohio Facility Construction Commission, and we are looking to get the ball rolling for a potential new build across the street. What I want everyone to understand is this tonight, this action we're looking for approval on is not saying the elementary school is happening. We are basically saying we're giving permission for the state to work with the state to start initial studies, to look at our facilities, look at our enrollment, look at our staffing. What does it take to operate Norwalk City School District? So that's simply what this resolution is. The board members are saying, yes, we are having that first initial step taking so we can get that study. That doesn't mean a school's happening, but yes, the folks up here, we want that to happen, but we also need that data first before we can move forward with it. So that's the resolution to get that part started. So in October, they're hopeful they can provide that stats to us. And once we get that data given to us, we as a board, administration, we can look at where do we want to concentrate our monies in our district. Existing facilities such as Norwalk High School that we all still call the new building, but it's a 20-year building. So things can be addressed here. Norwalk Middle School, we'll have that needs assessment in front of us and we'll be able to make wise decisions following that. So that is number 3 and the last of my superintendent.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval of superintendent's report, items 1 through 3.
So move.
Thank you. A second? Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Ritzenthaler.
Yes.
Mrs. Crouch.
Yes.
Mr. Norris. Yep. And Mrs. Wick.
Yes. Items for information.
So first one, Lifewise Academy. I sent a letter to Buddy Workman yesterday confirming that Norwalk City School District will be participating with Lifewise. Now understand when I say participating, it's this step only, because then the baton is put in the hands of the Lifewise directors and they will carry this forward. So obviously as a public school, this is vetted, we're allowed to do this. The state law has been on the books for a long time. We're going back to 1952, the Supreme Court ruled on that. Recently, as recent as 2015, as we discussed last month, there's a board policy that basically supports that law, that public school kids can indeed leave during school hours for education with religion. What are the 3 components of that? Parents have to say yes to that. Parent consent's the number 1. That's the number 1 piece. Parents are going to be the deciding factor whether that happens. Number 2, it can't be on school grounds. It has to be off school grounds. Number 3 is that's not going to be supported by state, federal funding. There is an outside money that has to happen through Lifewise to support that. So with that said, what does our operation look like? And I will have to explain this to you because I want you all to know we've been transparent about this from the start, and this is our plan for next year. Fridays, and this is Janice Smith, it's her plan that's going to work, because my line was, I don't want to go in front of anybody and say special electives aren't important. I said, can we come up with a plan where we're not impacting core classes and we're not even touching special electives? That's important to me. So what she is having is on Friday at the last hour of the week is basically activities where kids have met goals. They are doing activities with them. So they're not actually in a class. They're not missing any class. We're not tied to that. Second and third graders would leave. If the parents say, yes, they want their child involved, they will leave at that time on a bus that's not our own, by a Lifewise bus. They will get on that bus. Attendance will be taken by Lifewise. Those kids will be taken to the Methodist church. So obviously knowing the location, just around the block from Pleasant Elementary. 1:45 to 2:45 is the window of time. So that is when that would take place on the Friday, one time per week. All right. So I understand I've had people from all sides and I respect different opinions on this, but the law is solid on this, the policy is solid on this, and I like the fact that parents can have a choice on this. I will speak to, I don't do something before I've done a lot of research on something, and I'll speak to Defiant City Schools. All of you are welcome to call Defiant City Schools and speak to them. And why do I reference Defiant City? If you look at, and Pat knows this as a principal, they are very similar to our district. You look at enrollment, you look at city population, they're about a mirror of us. So that's why I go back to Defiant City. They piloted it this year. They do have a K-5 facility. So they have one facility that's a K-5, potentially something we could be looking at in the future. We don't know that yet until we get our facility assessment back. They have 1,100 students in K-5. By Christmas time, so we're saying essentially by the end of first semester, they have 800 students of 1,100 at K-5 that are attending Lifewise. So you say that Defiance is a very similar district, 800 of 1,100 students, K-5, the parents said, I like what's happening there. So for those that take the counterpoint, I respect the counterpoint. We shouldn't have any hands on this. We're not going to have our hands on it. But the fact is, if I can get people in front of vetted adults that we would say have high character and integrity, and when you say most of these programs, they're looking at a retired teacher population. So some of the people that have been longtime Norwalk truckers, graduates of Norwalk High School, we might be tapping in that very field of good teachers you've had that are wanting to do this now. So that is my support, but the support beyond this day it's not coming out of my mouth, because when people ask the question, would you send your kid, would you want someone that you reference them? Because, and I'm going to make sure Mrs. Smith and the teachers know that no teacher is going to encourage it or discourage it. And that's the line from the school standpoint. You can study for yourself. Parents are welcome to go and learn about it, but we're going to be hands off. So the initial part was they needed a letter from me with my signature saying that we're willing to do this. But like all things, just like the social emotional wellness days, we're going to study it too. And we're going to decide, is this working well? But I have confidence in the fact that when I talk to Superintendent Defiance and he speaks of what that looks like in Defiance and Defiance County, that it's a positive. And if we have parents that think this is wise for their kids, I support that piece.
COVID news, do you have anything?
Yes, I do. Currently 770 students attending Hobie, and I guess there's 718 applicants. Erica Beckman, congratulations to her, because she is now their new assistant superintendent over there, after filling a role as the high school principal. I've known Erica a long time. That's a great educator there. Also, congratulations to one of our students, Connor Rademacher, who placed first in the DECA district competition in the personal financial literacy category. Connor now will advance to the state competition. And this little plug for the Hobie Chef's Inn is now open to the public on Wednesdays and Thursdays. It says on my sheet 11 to 1, but I think it's 10:30 to 1. Menus can be found online at the beginning of the week. Reservations are suggested but not required. I was over there last week with Dwayne Moore. It was really good. I tell you, they're good cooks.
It's like a 5-star almost.
Yeah,
You know?
and the prices are real reasonable.
Well, I mean, you would think, if they're blindfolded, you would think.
Well, I've been over there a couple of times, and it's good. Every time I've been over, it was good. That's all I have.
Thank you. Legislative, do we have anything?
Not this time. We'll have a few policy related ones for next month, but not at this time.
Any board discussions or comments? Motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second? Roll call?
Mr. Ritzenthaler.
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Norris. And Mrs. Wick.
Yes. Was that your first time?